I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of Old's Oscar Countdown. And this week we're going to be looking at the Best Supporting Actor category. I'm going to give you my thoughts, my predictions for each of my 5 potential nominees to get nominated in this category, as well as a couple possible contenders to help you ultimately make your predictions. But if you're new to the series, what I do every single week is pick a different Oscar category and do a deep dive in it and try to figure out who's going to get nominated for that category. Then, as the Oscar race continues, we're going to be covering other award shows like the Golden Globes, like SAG, like BAFTA, Critics' Choice, predict those, react to some of those nominees, ultimately see how they affect the big one, that being the Oscar race. So if you appreciate the channel, subscribe to the channel. We have videos every week consistently, Monday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, and then sometimes bonus videos on top of that. Like I said, if we're doing predictions or reactions to award shows, things like that. And as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, so please feel free to share down there. Let me know what your personal 5 are. Let me know if you think I'm wrong about something. Let me know if you just saw a movie and you think that changes the Oscar race. I love to create a great Oscar-loving community here on this channel. But without further ado, let's just jump into things, starting off with my first pick being Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer. This award right now, I think, is Robert Downey Jr.'s award to lose, even though I don't think he's completely invincible. But he has all the makings of a winner. Of course, he is a supporting actor in this film, but he is a main lead actor, particularly in the sort of third hour of the movie. So he gets a lot of screen time, he gets a lot of scenes to show off. So he's very clearly a supporting actor, but a notable part of the movie where you walk away with the movie thinking a lot about his character. So that's important. Of course, second of all, the movie Oppenheimer, we expect right now to be the Best Picture frontrunner. We expect it to be a really well-appreciated movie. So if the Academy responds to this movie, I think this is going to be a key performance and a memorable performance when they think about the film. And when we look at Best Picture winners, if we look at the past 5 Best Picture winners, 3 out of the 5 winners won an award in the Best Supporting Actor category and then went on to win the Oscar. It's the only category, particularly within the last 5 years, it's the category that has the strongest connection with Best Picture. We talked about in other episodes how critical it is that in order to win Best Picture, it helps to also have an acting award win, and the most common combination is that Supporting Actor win and that Best Picture win. So this is critical that if Oppenheimer really is the frontrunner to win for Best Picture, it's critical that it also gets a win in one of these acting categories. I think it can be Cillian Murphy, but I actually think its best chance would actually be a category like this with Robert Downey Jr. Now, the big X factor of whether or not he's going to win, he's going to get nominated. I mean, he's in a really well-liked movie. He's a very memorable part, a liked and respected actor. The big question of whether or not if he's going to win is if he's going to campaign. The SAG strike is still going on at the time of this recording, so it's going to be very interesting to see. Will actors want to do a little bit more press for Oscar movies, or are they going to be so fed up they're going to want to go straight into whatever projects they have lined up, so they won't be able to campaign? It'll be a very unique year from that perspective. That being said, the reason why I think campaigning and doing press and doing the Q&As and going to parties, why I think that's so important for someone like Robert Downey Jr., because it's important for all actors, particularly when winning Oscars. That's usually the X factor. But why I think it's important for him is because he's such a charming personality. Because in past years, we've seen narratives sometimes work and sometimes lose. Last year I won with Brendan Fraser's The Whale, but narratives don't always necessarily work out. Look at Glenn Close in The Wife. But he has that sort of a narrative. He is an actor who, was so promising early on in his career, then got into drugs, then had rehab, then had sort of his career revived with Marvel and Iron Man, and then he did that for a decade, and now he's out of Marvels, and he's in a nice prestige movie, so the Oscars can welcome him back with open arms and give him an Oscar. That's kind of the sense of the narrative that I'm sort of seeing in terms of his potential win. Of course, it also helps that he's in a really well-liked movie, so there's not sort of a pushback against that. That it makes sense if he were to win, in the same way Brad Pitt, it was sort of his time, and he was also in a good movie, so then it happened. Same thing with Laura Dern for Marriage Story that year. We see these narratives happen, but narratives a little bit harder when you have something like Glenn Close and The Wife, and The Wife isn't really a movie a lot of people have seen, and they're just nominating Glenn Close because they like Glenn, not necessarily the movie. We don't always see narratives work. But I do think that if Downey goes out, does some press, he's already such a charming personality, he's going to win over Oscar voters just like that. Combined with the fact that he's in such a beloved movie, or expected to be highly nominated movie this year, there's a strong chance of him getting nominated, but then also winning. And then my number 2 and number 3 predictions are going to be from the same movie. It's going to be Mark Ruffalo and Willem Dafoe for Poor Things. Now, if I were to actually rank their likelihood, I probably would have Mark Ruffalo in 2 or 3 slots and then the Willem Dafoe in the 5th slot. But just for the sake of cleanness, I wanted to talk about them here together. I talked about this last week, how if you look at the past 6 years in a row, at least one of the supporting categories, whether Best Supporting Actor or Best Supporting Actress, every year for the past 6 years in a row, we've had 2 people from the same movie nominated in one of these categories. So last year we had Brendan Gleeson and Barry Keoghan for Banshees of Inisherin, but we also had Jamie Lee Curtis and Stephanie Hsu for Everything Everywhere All at Once. It was sort of rare up until this point, but in the past 6 years we've continually seen this trend happen. So you try to look for that this year. And last week I mentioned Danielle Brooks and Taraji P. Henson. I think will get nominated for The Color Purple, in part because I really believe in the success of The Color Purple as a Best Picture contender. Well, similarly here, I believe in Poor Things even more of a possible Best Picture contender. And I think that helps. When you look at the Best Supporting Actor category for the past 5 years in a row, there's an average of 4 out of the 5 slots that go to performances from actors that were in Best Picture nominees. So you'll always have one sort of odd one, one Brian Tyree Henry and Causeway, but for the most part, they nominate Joe Pesci and Al Pacino and Brad Pitt and actors in movies that they like that year. Oftentimes, 2 from the same movie that they like. So it wouldn't be crazy to say that both of them got nominated here for Poor Things. And I believe in Poor Things even more so than The Color Purple. I mean, this is a movie that won the Golden Lion at Venice. This is an award that past Best Picture winners like Nomadland and The Shape of Water have won, so it's a critical award. And then also you look at Yorgos Lanthimos' last movie, The Favourite, which got 10 nominations. I think Poor Things will get at least 10 nominations. I think it's going to be a serious Oscar contender. So if you think that the Oscars are going to like this movie, well, what's to like about the movie? In part, a lot of it is the performances. I have Emma Stone getting nominated for Best Lead Actress, but I also think both these 2 actors get in as well. And it also helps, I think, that they're a little bit different in terms of their performances and their performance style within the film. Mark Ruffalo is a little bit more crazier and matches the energy of someone like an Emma Stone and how sort of strange and weird and off-kilter the performances, playing this sort of huckster con man type who's a little bit more villainous. And then you also have Willem Dafoe's character, who provides, I think, the real heart of the film, who is a character that isn't in as much of the movie as, certain others Best Supporting Actor winners, let's say, but he is a critical sort of mad scientist character within the film, and different sort of performance style than Ruffalo's character, and brings a little bit more of that emotional connection. So if you like the emotion of the film and you really enjoy the film, that you would appreciate its weirdness, but you also have an emotional connection to the film, you'll definitely appreciate Willem Dafoe's character. So you have this sort of unique combination of 2 actors. Ruffalo's been nominated 3 times, Dafoe's been nominated 4 times, so they're well-liked actors in a movie that we expect to be well-liked in Poor Things, an established sort of actors, usually supporting actor category. They like to go with the Alan Arkins, the Joe Pesci's, the people who've been around for a long time, sort of established character actors or well-respected actors. Willem Dafoe and Mark Ruffalo, I think, fit into that spot very well. And if you look at the past, 10 years of Oscar nominees and Oscar winners, the Oscars, particularly for this category, they either like villain roles, think of J.K. Simmons from Whiplash, think of Heath Ledger for Joker, or they like the guy who brings warmth. Think of Troy Kotsur for Coda, or Ke Kwan for Everything Everywhere All at Once. We see these sort of 2 personas continually get nominated. I think Willem Dafoe has a little bit of the warmth. I think Ruffalo has a little bit of the villainous aspect to it. So I think both of them can not going to overlap in terms of their love. They can both get nominated in a movie that I expect to be heavily nominated as well. So I think Dafoe and Ruffalo can definitely get in for Poor Things. Then my 4th slot, I'm going to go with Robert De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon. And a lot of people are starting to see Killers this past week. And I think there's a little bit of a split understanding within the Oscar community as to who in the movie is really going to succeed. I think probably none of them are in terms of actual wins, but they'll probably all get nominated. The main 3 of the film being Lily Gladstone, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Robert De Niro. The difference being is that Gladstone and DiCaprio are competing in the lead categories and De Niro's competing in a supporting category. And that's really helpful because at the end of the day, when you look at these Best Supporting Actor winners, they oftentimes go to actors who, when you think about the movie, you think about their character. So that helps that, supporting actors like Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he's essentially the co-lead of that movie. You think about that movie, you think about him and DiCaprio. And the same way you think about this movie, you think of DiCaprio, Gladstone, and De Niro. And, I think this is an excellent performance. I think it's a little bit of an easier performance to really connect to versus, say, like a Lily Gladstone performance where she does disappear for a good bit of the film. De Niro is sort of a consistent, villainous, evil kind of presence that looms around the film, the sort of white manifestation of the owl, as the movie explains it. Like I mentioned earlier, the Oscars in the supporting category usually like to recognize either villainous performances or people with warmth. This is definitely one of the villainous sides, but it's a great mode for De Niro that he hasn't really done since, I think, probably Cape Fear in this really intense way. So it's great to see that he still can do this, and it's a little bit of a surprise, like, oh wow, I didn't really think De Niro still had this in him, and he's very menacing and very good in the film. I also think the movie's still going to do well in terms of nominations, so I expect him to sort of ride the wave in the success of the film. There is a little bit of concern for me, though, that because they didn't nominate him for The Irishman, maybe they don't love him. Although The Irishman is much more of a sort of a quiet, subtler, stoic part, where this is a little bit more obvious and a little bit more showy, and the Oscars usually resonate to that element particularly. So I think De Niro here is not a lock, but probably I'm more confident in De Niro getting a nomination than I am, say, Gladstone or De Niro, even though I think all three of them get a nomination. It's just a little bit more of the sort of traditional showy part, and also personally the one that I think I connected to the most. And then my fifth pick, I'm going to go with Charles Melton for May, December. Now, this may be a little bit of a shock to some of you, surprise, but I decided to make this pick based on Oscar game theory. Not necessarily what I think is the best performance, because that's not what we try to do here. We try to think what we're going to get nominated, not our personal opinions. And I looked at the race, and I looked at the Best Supporting Actor category, and for the past 9 years in a row, there's been at least one performance that gets nominated in the Best Supporting Actor category whose movie was not nominated for Best Picture. I mentioned earlier that there's usually an average of 4 out of the 5 whose movie also has a Best Picture nomination, but usually there's at least one. And at this time of year, we usually go 5 for 5, or probably 4 for 5, and we always predict these kinds of performances in movies that they like, and every year the Oscars surprise us. Every year we see an Andrea Riseborough or a Brian Tyree Henry, or a couple of years ago we said J.K. Simmons for Being the Ricardos. That sort of surprise and come out of nowhere. The actors continually show us that they like to nominate performances from movies that they don't necessarily love. It's not always just look at the Best Picture lineup and then nominate performances in those films. Sometimes you get a Brendan Fraser in The Whale, where they don't really love the movie, but the performance is so terrific you have to nominate him, and you have to give him the win, and also nominate Hong Chow for The Whale. I mean, just look at the Best Supporting Actor category last year. I was debating, was it Brad Pitt in Babylon or Paul Dano for The Fabelmans, and ends up being Brian Tyree Henry in Causeway. So you have to sort of look at it from a game theory perspective sometimes and go, do I really think it's going to be another sort of Best Picture nominee in this fifth slot, even though it hasn't happened 9 years in a row? Or is there going to be some sort of surprise? Because there always is some sort of surprise. So then the question becomes next, well, what is going to be the surprise performance? And you start to look at the types of movies that do surprise. A Brian Tyree Henry in the movie Causeway, or J.K. Simmons in Being the Ricardos, or even look at the Best Supporting Actress category last year, Hong Chow in The Whale. These are all movies that I call cusp movies, that don't get nominated for Best Picture, but they're in the awards conversation. They get to Christmas release. They're sort of on the cusp. They may get 1 nomination, maybe 2 nominations. That's it. So I looked at all the sort of potential nominees, and the one that stuck out, the one that was most obvious, was Charles Melton in May, December. May, December, who I think is technically a contender in screenplay, possibly supporting actress, possibly actress. Always sort of a cusp kind of a movie. I don't think it's going to get nominated for Best Picture, but it is sort of on the cusp. So I know people are going to be seeing it. And when people see the movie, based on the reviews, I haven't seen the film yet myself, but they mention Charles Melton as a standout performance. They mention how, oh, it's, Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore, but who's this Melton kid? This guy's really good. And then also the fact that there's an intense dedication to the role. He put on, 40 pounds, I think, for the role to seem a little bit more mixed between very young, but a little more adult, and he's not got the super chiseled body. So there's a dedication element that I think the Academy will like. I think they'll be watching this movie. I think they'll appreciate this performance. And in part, I'm nominating this because one of those five that everyone thinks is a sort of clear number five is going to fall out or is not going to get nominated. So what is that movie going to be? What is the movie that's going to sneak in? And May December feels like that kind of a movie. Charles Melton, I think, also has the wow factor of, who is this? You know, I've never seen him before. He's going up against some of these great actors, these past Oscar winners. I have a lot of respect for that. In the same way, Lily Gladstone is doing a similar thing in Killers of the Flower Moon. Plus, on top of all that, you have Todd Haynes is the director of the film, and you look at his past films, and he never gets nominated for Best Picture, his movies, but he oftentimes gets his actors nominated for acting awards. You look at Carol, got Cate Blanchett and Rooney Mara nominations. You look at I'm Not There, got Cate Blanchett nomination. You look at Far From Heaven, got Julianne Moore a nomination. So really the big thing I think going against him is the concern about the movie, but I also think that, you know, it actually helps him that his movie's not going to be nominated for Best Picture, so that's a positive, so I don't really consider that a concern. And then the other concern is, oh, he's too young, Connor. Connor, he's too young. They don't nominate young actors too often, which is true. Historically, the Oscars, particularly in the Best Lead Actor category, go for the older established actor over the young actor. But then you look at the Best Supporting Actor category and you go, well, that's actually changing. That's actually not necessarily true anymore. You look at a couple, last year, Barry Keoghan for Banshees of Inisherin. The year before that, you have Cody Smith-McPhee for The Power of the Dog. The year before that, you have Daniel Kaluuya winning the Oscar in this category, Best Supporting Actor. He was aged 30, 31. And you know who was also nominated that year? Keith Stanfield, who was in his late 20s when he got nominated. So you have actors in their 20s nominated 3 years in a row, sort of consistently at this point. So maybe we should sort of readjust our thoughts and go, well, maybe we should have at least one young actor in here. There's seemingly some sort of a trend that could be building, or maybe not, maybe I'm wrong, but it is something to consider. And Charles Melton is in that sort of similar age range. He's not even in his 20s, he's in his early 30s, and plays, I think, a little bit older within the film. So that almost sort of negates that element too. So you look at it, you look at some of the nominees, and you go, 4 out of the 5 every year for the past 9 years are nominated for Best Picture. That means one is not. Well, you know, who's going to make it? Who's going to be the Brian Tyree Henry and Causeway? Who's going to be that sort of one actor in that slot? For me, the one that makes the most sense is Charles Melton for May December. So I know it's a little bit out there. I know it's a little bit crazy. I know people are going to be mad at me in the comments for leaving certain people out. But I think you should seriously consider Charles Melton to enter into your top 5. Then my first possible contender is Ryan Gosling for Barbie. And I see a lot online that people consider this a number 2, number 3, definite sort of for sure nomination. And personally, I'm a little bit skeptical. I think there's a lot of hope dicting going on. People that hope this is going to get nominated rather than predicting it's going to get in. Because these performances pretty rarely get nominated. I mean, the last one that you would see a sort of a pure comedic performance get nominated would be like a Melissa McCarthy in Bridesmaids over 10 years ago. Usually when we see the supporting actor category, like I mentioned, there's performances that are funny, but also always has the sort of warmth element. Listen to me, because for the past few months, I did this series called The Ultimate Oscar Showdown, where I tier ranked all of the acting categories from the 2010s to the 70s. So I watched all of the performances in the supporting actor category, all the winners from the 2010s all the way to the 70s. There's never a performance that wins just based on purely comedic bravura. There's always some sort of hard warmth, there's always some sort of heart, there's always some sort of sentimentality. And Ryan Gosling doesn't have that. I mean, he's very funny in the movie, he's very iconic. I think this will be a memorable movie for years to come, but it is a pure comedic performance. And these performances, traditionally at the Oscars, just don't get nominated. So you're betting on an outlier to happen. And I actually think that Barbie, being the most successful movie of the year, may actually deter people from wanting to nominate it, because they'll go, you know, I want to highlight a performance like Charles Melton or Dominic Sessa or something else that's a little bit maybe more prestige. And Barbie, it already got its awards, it already got Best Picture. That's why I'm actually concerned. You know, I don't think Margot Robbie is going to get in. I know there's a potential possibility for America Ferrera for Barbie. I don't think she's going to get in. I think the Academy is going to look at this movie and go, it already got its big award, being the biggest movie of the year, the box office champion. That's its sort of award. Do we need to give it all these Oscars? I don't think they're going to feel the need to do that. And why do I think that? Well, if you look at past big blockbuster box office hits like Avatar: The Way of Water or Black Panther in recent years, or even go a little further back like a Mad Max Fury Road, these movies don't get acting nominations. They usually get technical stuff and picture and sort of a recognition that they're the biggest movie of the year, but they're not really big, serious Oscar movies, particularly in these sort of hallowed acting categories. So listen, I love the performance. I think it's so funny. I think it's iconic in a great film. But I just don't think that if you look at Oscar history and you look at the past few years, they don't usually nominate this type of performance, a pure comedic performance without that sort of real core, central, sort of sentimental heart. Maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh on the movie, but I am a little bit concerned that this is just not a type of performance that they will nominate, so I'm right now in a little bit of a wait and see. Will they really give it to Ryan Gosling? He's only been nominated twice. I think some people also think he's a little bit more appreciated than he is. He's only been nominated twice. They didn't nominate him for First Man or Place Beyond the Pines or Drive or Blade Runner. These are all well-liked movies, yes, but they're not necessarily Oscar movies. So I do have a concern that he'll get snubbed here for Barbie. And then my other possible contender is Dominic Sessa for The Holdovers. Now, I don't know if this is a supporting actor nominee. We haven't really seen sort of official for consideration ads being put out for this film yet, so we'll have to wait and see where he ultimately gets campaigned for. But if he is being campaigned in the Best Supporting Actor category, then I think that's going to be a positive for him because he's essentially a co-lead of the movie. He is sort of one of the main characters of the movie, so he gets a lot of screen time. The Holdovers is a movie I think people like. We mentioned the fact that in recent years, actually younger actors are getting nominated more frequently in this category, so I wouldn't say him being young as a deterrent either. He's also very much, I think this is his first movie or one of his first films. They essentially got him from one of the schools they were shooting at, so he is sort of an introducing type of an actor, and that is going to be very powerful for a lot of people because no one will know who this guy is, and everyone, I think, will be wowed by him. That being said, the concern is, well, if you really like Paul Giamatti and you really like Divine Joy Randolph, will you also nominate Dominic Sessa, or will you nominate the more sort of established actors in their fields? Hard to say right now, but you know, I think the fact that if he is campaigning in Best Supporting Actor, and because he's in so much of the movie, and because I expect the movie to be well liked, that could just be enough to push him over the edge. But I am a little bit concerned that actually they'll maybe campaign him in lead, and he just won't get a nomination. But that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, comment below. Let me know your thoughts on my predictions. Let me know your own predictions. I love hearing that stuff. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss a video. Likes always help. But at the end of the day, I just really hope you enjoyed the video. That's why I make this. But that's about it. Until next time, stay tuned.